All right, well, I appreciate you all being here and learning a little bit about social media with me. We've heard a lot about passion this conference, and we've heard a lot about social media. You know, it's been kind of the forefront of many conversations for us. And so we want to focus on how we can use that passion for this sport and to tell our story through social media. You know, this is a really passionate group. It takes a lot of passion to get up at 4 a.m. and drive to the lake. It takes a lot of passion to chip ice off of the ramp and put the boat in when maybe we should second think it. It takes a lot of passion to grind it out in 2 and 3 foot swells, trying to catch that last fish when we probably should have headed in an hour ago. We've all done those things, and we're a very passionate group. And we're also a really good group of storytellers. You know, there's going to be hundreds, if not thousands, of fish stories told at the bar tonight. We're notorious for embellishing stories. It's what we do. They call it a fish story for a reason. But it's interesting that we're such good storytellers and we're so very passionate, but a lot of times we have a lot of trouble telling that story in the digital world. And a lot of times people will tell me it's because they're not very technologically savvy. They're not great with technology. And it's interesting because those will be the same old timers that can tell exactly how big the walleye is that's nibbling on their 1/32 ounce jig using a flasher and little light beams, you know. Or they can read all of these highly sensitive electronics on their boats, but navigating Facebook with a menu is super complicated. I have faith in you guys. You all can figure it out if you dive in and you're willing to get your hands dirty and you're willing to ask questions when you need to. So yeah, let's get started. Here are some of our key waypoints that we're going to be covering today. Some things that I really want to make sure we touch on. We're going to talk about picking the perfect platforms, making sure we're in the right spot. We're going to talk about choosing our target audience, making sure we're talking to the right people in the right spot. We're going to talk about developing high-quality content so that we're delivering our message in a good way and people want to engage with us. We're going to talk about creating a content calendar and laying all of that out and approaching this with a strategy, not just posting all willy-nilly. We're going to talk about executing quality posts and testing those out in the right way. We'll also discuss promoting our sponsors, our products, our key events, and all those things that really drive the revenue so we can keep doing what we do. We'll talk about managing page interaction and those fans. Once we've established them, we want to make sure that we keep them. And we'll also talk about interpreting those analytics and coming back and adjusting our strategy so that we can be more effective in the future. So first off, you're wondering, who's this guy? Why should I listen to him? What does he know? So I want to give you guys a little bit of background on me so that you understand where I'm coming from. In 2011, I started working at the Bass Pro Shop store in Springfield. I was in their fishing department, so biggest fishing department in the nation. I came in thinking that I knew a lot about fishing, and I quickly learned that that was not the case. When you're dealing with that many lures and tackle, rods, reels, that many SKUs, you learn that you don't know half of what you thought. And I quickly picked up a lot on different techniques, different lures, learned the industry. Felt like I learned a lot about the consumer as well. In 2012, I graduated from Missouri State and moved over to the corporate office there at Bass Pro, joined their digital marketing team, and they actually handed me, a 23-year-old kid, the keys to their corporate social media accounts. I'm not sure they realized exactly the power of social media at the time. It was still relatively new, but that was pretty awesome. As a 23-year-old guy, being able to address, 3.5 million Facebook fans. So when you've got that many Facebook fans, you quickly learn what works and what doesn't. You misidentify a species, you call a rig the wrong thing, you misspell a word, you offend the babysitters for Bambi Association, you quickly know about it. So I learned a lot there, then moved over to their brand marketing team, helped on their camping brands for a while, and then I became the one-source content editor for their content website. So I worked with outdoor writers and video producers, things like that. Then I moved over, I was a sales rep for about 1.5 years in the outdoor industry, learned a lot about outdoor shows, outdoor brands, how to help them. I also learned sales wasn't quite for me, that I wanted to go back to the social media world, but I feel like I picked up a lot of good skills there. And then I think it was October of 2017, I branched into full-time freelance social media management and freelance photography. So here are some of my current brands that I manage their social media accounts: the NPAA, Future Angler Foundation, Arctic Shield Outdoor, which is a camo clothing company. I also work with Covercraft and Precision Fit. They're on the automotive side. And that's been interesting because I'm not as comfortable with the automotive world. So having to learn new pieces of content, how to adjust for a different type of audience, that's been a really cool experience. And then I just brought on ADCO, which they are a RV cover and accessory company. So I'm looking forward to working more in the camping industry as well. Oh, wrong button here. I also assist some anglers and brands with event coverage, mainly in the bass world, so I help Bassmaster out, also cover some MLF events. It's been awesome working with these big brands and major anglers on the bass side. You learn a lot about how they approach content, how they approach their audience. So, and I'm actually doing some freelance photography for Bassmaster, covering some opens and things like that. So I've worked with Bassmaster, Rapala, Mercury, Triton, a huge handful of brands, and also anglers like KVD, Ott, Edwin, Bradley Roy, Brandon Lester, Brent Chapman, and I've done some work with Ike too, so that's been a really cool experience, learning from them. I think I'm preaching to the choir here. I've literally every session I've sat in on this conference, social media has been brought up. I think we're all starting to understand the importance of it, and that it is our place to really tell our story and reach that audience. There's 3.2 billion social media users daily, which is 42% of the world population. So you think about all the people in the world that maybe aren't connected to technology at all, and that number is still that high. It's a pretty huge percentage of the first world countries that are on social media. 2/3 of US adults are active on Facebook. We also spend an average of 2 hours and 22 minutes a day on social media. So your audience is there. And there's 500 million daily Instagram stories, and that number is growing as we speak. So your audience is there. It's up to you to tell them the story. So one of the things we got to figure out, and I'm going to approach this whole thing like we're planning a fishing trip, because that's the language we all speak, right? You want to make sure you're targeting the right species first and foremost. You got to know what they do, what are their patterns, where are they going to be. So we want to make sure that we're targeting our market and we figure out what our target market is. And I'll tell you what, on the internet, every niche exists. If you can do it, there's an audience out there for it. The example that I used in the last session was I found a guy recently, this last week, he has 650,000 Instagram followers, and all he does is puts different species of bugs on his face and takes a picture. They're crazy bugs, that's crazy. But he's now an affiliate marketer for, I think, Louis Vuitton, and that's probably his full-time career is putting bugs on his face. So if this guy can make a living doing that, you can reach a market in pan fishing, crappie fishing, bass fishing, walleye fishing, muskie, whatever it might be. Your audience is out there. So don't feel like, oh, this little piece of the world is too small, because it's not. So research your market, figure out their age, their demographics, their income level, see what you can learn about the people you're talking to, and you're going to be much more effective. Ike already touched on it. You want to make sure that you find your voice and you remain authentic to who you are. Are you smart? Are you clever? Are you funny? Are you relatable? Find who you are and then keep that voice on your social media channels. And that's the same for a brand, an individual, media network, whatever it is. Figure out what you do and who you are, and then stick to it. And that'll be your guiding line as you go through the rest of the process. Next, we want to make sure that we pick the right reservoir, right? So we know what species we're targeting. Now we need to make sure we go to the right place where we can reach that target market. And we're going to discuss several different social media platforms here. I'll try and run through them pretty quickly because you guys are probably pretty familiar with them. But we'll also discuss some new ones that you may want to try out, and just the general approach to all of this. So Facebook is the one we all know and love. 2.4 billion users. It works as a great media hub for your photos, albums of photos, video, short and medium form text. It's also great for event management, for groups, and it works as a great hub for promoting your posts and building out ads there. So Facebook is almost a necessary evil. A lot of people love it. I battle with it on a daily basis. There's so much functionality built into it, so much you can do that it's almost overwhelming. But it's kind of somewhere that you need to be, at least as a base camp, to store some of your media and also to be able to access other accounts because they're connected to your Facebook account. Instagram is my personal favorite and a favorite of, I would probably say, my generation. I looked up the common demographics, and it's 25 to 34-year-olds is the most common group on Instagram. So if you're looking to reach maybe a little bit younger consumer, Instagram is where it's at. There's an emphasis on high-quality photography, on high-quality videos that are 1 minute or less. And they've actually dropped the Instagram TV aspect where you can now post longer form videos. So if you haven't explored that yet and you're a video creator, that's a good option to try out. There's also expiring 24-hour stories on there. A lot of you are probably familiar with that on Instagram, but it can be a great way to capture current events or short little snippets. If you want a good example of that, I've got one going on the NPAA account right now for the conference, so you can kind of go check out what that looks like. I'm not saying it's perfect. Everybody has their own style, but it'll at least give you an example of how that works. Twitter, y'all have heard about this. Donald Trump has made Twitter famous if it wasn't already. 330 million users, short snippets of text. It's great for sharing of links. It's my favorite for live event coverage. You know, anytime I'm watching a ball game, I get on Twitter. I follow a lot of sports writers, sports analysts, things like that. I want to see if everyone's as mad at the refs as I am. Makes me feel a lot better. It's also great for interaction and networking. You know, like I said, I follow those sports writers. You can follow major athletes, celebrities, things like that. And you can interact with them, and sometimes they respond. It's pretty tough to do that anywhere else in life, so pretty cool. YouTube, there's been a lot of conversation about YouTube in the industry over the past couple of years. It's got 2 billion users. It's a great video library if you are big into video, education, how-tos. That's somewhere that you really need to be is YouTube. There's YouTube stars, you know, you all know about the Guggen Squad. There's a ton of them, and they've actually made a fortune on YouTube. I wish that I had known about that back when I was a kid, and I would have definitely pursued that. There is an SEO benefit to YouTube videos and having those links. Since Google owns YouTube, they increase your page ranking in the search results based on YouTube videos linking back and forth from your content or integration with YouTube. So that's something to consider. There are also issues because whenever you share, say, a YouTube video on Facebook, Facebook doesn't like it because they want you using their video platform. So it displays kind of funky and can be a pain to work with that sometimes. So sometimes you need to upload the video separately to Facebook or the actual social media channel. I'll touch on these real quick just to kind of give you the overview of not to be afraid to try out a new platform. Sometimes being on the cutting edge will give you a lot of benefit. You know, you can reach a new audience and you may be able to go viral a lot more quickly, or you may reach the right audience and you can cut through the noise easier. I don't know if you guys have heard of TikTok, but it's endless scrolling of video. If you haven't checked it out yet, get on it and look at it, but give yourself some time because it can be pretty addictive. It was founded in 2012 in China and dropped in the US in 2017, I believe. So it's pretty cool. It's really popular with the younger crowd, a lot of funny videos. But I have seen where people are giving law advice on TikTok. I don't know if there's anyone doing phishing social media content on TikTok yet. Maybe you could be that guy. Yeah.
HT Enterprises is doing it.
Are they? Okay. I'll have to check that out. Yeah, so that's one of the benefits of being a first mover, right? You're able to get on there and build up that audience. There's also Snapchat. How many of you guys are Snapchat users? Anybody in here? Cool. So a lot of times you're just using that to message back and forth with friends, but some brands have been able to harness the power of that as well. And then how about UDO Outdoors? Has anyone heard of that? So that one is outdoors focused. It was invented by some guys that were tired of the censorship of the outdoor industry, especially on the hunting side, on Instagram and Facebook. Excuse me. So they created this where they can share, all their photos of big bucks and not be worried about a little bit of blood in it and things like that and getting censored. So that may be an option that you want to check out. It could be a place where you may not have as big of a reach as you would on Facebook or Instagram, but you're reaching the right people and you're reaching your core audience. So never be afraid to experiment and try different platforms as well. But I would advise you that you want to stick to 2 or 3 basic platforms. If you're trying to do all 5 or 7 or wherever you end up, you're going to be spread thin. Unless you're just a massive media outlet and have multiple people to cover those things, it's going to be tough. So pick your 2 to 3 core ones and stick with those, but don't be afraid to try something new when it comes along. So before a fishing trip, you want to make sure that you have all your lures and tackle lined up and organized, right? So in this case, our lures is our content. So we want to make sure that we have all that organized and in a database. You're going to have big content days. Like for me, for NPAA, the conference is a huge content opportunity, right? We've got a ton of opportunities to take photos, videos, etc. But there's days where I don't have a lot of content coming in. So I'm going to have conference assets organized and ready to go for those days when I don't have a lot to work with. So as far as our content, we've got different things. We've got high quality images is one of the most essential cornerstones of social media marketing. And you don't have to have a $2,000, $3,000, $5,000 camera to develop those. Most of you have it in your pocket on your phone. Your phone can take pretty dang good images. Learn how to use it. I would say one of my biggest complaints, a lot of our NPAA tagged photos are just out of focus. So they're holding up a massive fish, big smile, great scenery. The fish in their face is out of focus, but I've got perfect focus on the trees. And I'm like, well, I can't even edit that. I can't make that better. So learn to click on your phone screen and focus on what you're taking a photo of, and you'll go a long ways. You also have great capabilities on your phone or free applications on your desktop where you can edit those photos. Go in and touch them up. Don't be afraid to do it. You're not being inauthentic by bringing out colors or clarity in a photo. That's a great thing. It's a great practice to do. And actually, a lot of times you're adjusting it to what your eye was able to see when you were there. So don't be afraid to do that. You want to manage your video length correctly according to the platform. We talked about Instagram being a minute or less. My sweet spot on Facebook is usually 2.5, 3 minutes. It used to be that was the same on YouTube, but now YouTube videos that are 20 minutes in length are doing great. So don't be afraid to adjust that, but keep an eye on your video length. A lot of people are scared off by the longer ones if you don't give them a good reason to engage. And make sure that everything is super organized. I'd say that's one of the biggest things that I spend a lot of time on is keeping content organized. So that way you can find what you need when you need it. There's going to be key trends and key things that pop up, and if you're not ready to post it, you've missed the window. Or if you can't find it, then you're just going to end up posting something else and not using your best stuff. So take the time to stay organized and mark what you've used. It's okay to recycle content occasionally, but you don't want to be duplicating all the time. So Ike got up here and he talked about his different content pillars, and he asked you guys to name off what you thought the pillars were, but I don't think he actually answered what his pillars are. And it was funny because he mentioned things like passion and temper and success and, never give up. But really, I don't think those are his content pillars. He's probably looking at different things like educating people on a new technique or a certain rig or a new bait. He's looking at informing people on this is what the Bass Pro Tour's got going on, or this is a key thing that I'm tuned into in conservation. And he's also looking to inspire people, which is that never give up emotion. So that would just be one of his content pillars. So you want to make sure that you're addressing each one. You've got to identify what content pillars are key for you. Are you trying to entertain people and just be funny and engaging? Are you trying to inform people? What are you trying to do? And then map those out. So my example for that would be like for the NPAA, I actually schedule things out based on day of the week, and it's not always consistent that way, but at least gives me a place to start. So I know that Sunday is one of our best social media posting times. So I like to highlight a member holding up a fish because I know it's one of our best pieces of content. So I try and do a grip and grin photo on Sunday evening. I try to promote a guide every Wednesday or Thursday because I know that our guides are key to our success and great contributing members. So that's one of our pillars. I want to make sure I'm taking care of our guides and outfitters. So every Wednesday or Thursday, I highlight one of those. Monday, I'm trying to share a key piece of news. So you can schedule these things out based on day of the week and then still leave yourself room to be flexible or move them around as needed, but at least you have a basis to start with. So that kind of rolls into our next point. You don't just go on a fishing trip and just head there and see what happens. You know, you've got a plan, and you can always adjust the plan as you move along, but you're starting with something. So I encourage each and every one of you to build some sort of content calendar. You need it. Build that out, and whether that's days of the week or here are key events that I need to hit during the month, build something out. Just a basic framework, if nothing else. And you can schedule some of that evergreen content in advance. You want to stay seasonal when you can, but you're going to have things like tips and tricks or a good catch that you want to throw back to that is good all year long. It doesn't matter. So schedule some of that out and then leave yourself room to plug in other things as they come along. You also want to leave space for greatness. Those are those other things. You may have a great day on the water that you weren't necessarily expecting, or something crazy happens. You want to leave some room to work that in, and then you can nudge other things around in your calendar. And I discussed, how Sunday evenings is one of our best times. You want to target those peak times and really maximize them with your best content, and then you can plug other things in other spots. Now, when you're out fishing, you hope you catch a fish on the first cast, but it's all about repetition, right? So you're not always going to get it right or go viral with each one. But if you keep posting and keep trying, you're going to get better as you go. So don't be afraid to experiment with different things while you're out there. Experiment with different times of day when you're posting. Experiment with different lures, if you will. Try live video. Sometimes live video works great in the algorithm. Facebook actually put a lot of emphasis on it in the past couple of years. Try out Instagram and Facebook stories if you haven't tried them yet. They may be really effective for you, they may not, but you won't know if you don't try it. Work in those single images, and then for certain things, maybe a gallery or a carousel post is best. And don't be afraid, especially if you're a brand or an angler that can insert some personality, don't be afraid to plug in those memes and graphics and have some fun with it. If you've got a great Baby Yoda meme, don't be afraid to throw it in. And when you do find things that work, revisit those favorites. If your audience is accepting of something and it's providing value for them, they're going to let you know. So don't be afraid to go back to those favorite spots, if you will. So while you're out there, you have to listen to your audience and keep an eye on those conditions on the water. And you also want to adjust with the algorithms. The algorithms are always changing, and if you don't know what I mean by algorithm, it's what decides whose posts go to the top of your feed every time you get in there. They're always changing: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, everything. So pay attention to those trends. And if someone tells you that they have the answer to all the algorithms, they're lying to you because nobody does, and they're always moving. It's always a moving target. But that's part of the fun of it. It's kind of a Wild West, and you get to try different things. So, for instance, hashtags. Facebook will tell you that they want you to use all the hashtags, that they want you to tag others in the post, but I've found that actually decreases reach on most of the brands I manage. Facebook posts seem to be more effective when they look like it's an individual posting off of their phone for the most part. You still want those high-quality images, but it seems like short plain text or short plain text with an image actually has the biggest reach. So just because the platform's telling you something doesn't necessarily mean that it's true. But whereas on Instagram, the more hashtags and tags you include, the better off you are just because other people are seeing it. It doesn't seem to affect the algorithm much at all. But the more you hashtag, the more you show up in searches. And the more you tag others, the more they get that little notification on their phone and they see you and come and interact. Make sure you pay attention to your image sizes. Those are also always changing, so I could include a chart of the best image sizes for Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that, but it'd be different in 3 months, so that wouldn't be that beneficial to you. It's all out there. You can find it. Just Google image sizes, and it's all there. There's even programs that'll size it for you. Most of the platforms are pretty adaptive, so whatever you plug in there works fairly well. Just pay attention to how does it look on your feed after you post, and that's how other people are likely seeing it. So pay attention to that and see what stands out to you, and don't be afraid to adjust. Adjust your video capabilities. We talked about the different lengths, and there's also vertical video and horizontal. Adjust with your platform and whatever works best. Don't be afraid to try out long form text. I talked about the short text working, but there's some people that have some really great things to say, and whenever they deliver that in like a blog or an essay form, even on a Facebook post, it still goes viral and gets shared. So if you have something good to say and you're not going to scare people off with a long length, don't be afraid to try it. Put it all out there. And don't be afraid to go live. Like we said, there's a lot of benefit to that sometimes. All right, so this is one of my biggest pet peeves in the industry, and I've heard a lot of talk about it already. When you go fishing, you don't set the hook on every cast, right? You're not reeling and just setting the hook, because you're actually going to catch less fish that way. So don't promote that way on social media. If you're constantly pushing product, sponsors, the hard sell, events you want people to attend, and that's all you're doing, you're just going to scare them off. And you're losing your authenticity because they're like, well, that guy pushes a product every day, so why would I believe that this one is better than the other? But if you harness the power of the soft sell and you do build that loyal audience because they're coming back for that content they want to see, then when the conditions are right and you have something that you really need to push, you really need to promote, you can really yank on that sucker and set the hook. And don't be afraid to push that hard sell when it's really important. Because then at that point, your audience is willing to listen to you. They're like, oh, this guy hasn't pushed anything in weeks, and now he's pushing this event or this brand new product. This must be really important. Maybe I should listen. And they're willing to listen to you there. Sorry, I skipped over the soft sell a little bit. Harness the power of that. You're holding up a fish, but you've got this key piece of gear in the background. Or maybe you use this lure, but you don't even mention the lure in the post. It's just in the photo. That can go a long way for people, and it goes a long way for brands. I know I love that as a brand manager because you're able to repost it, but it doesn't look so salesy. So if you can harness the power of the soft sell, you're going to go a long ways there too, and provide more value as a pro staffer, as an angler, as a brand, whatever that may be. All right, so we've worked hard to build up this audience. We've got a loyal audience. We're providing them with good content. We're going to consider them our catch, right? The live well's full. We want to take care of our catch. So how can we do that? Well, we can keep them involved by starting a conversation with them. And that'll actually get you favored in the algorithm pretty heavy. The more comments, the more interaction you're getting on your posts, the better you're going to do. So start a conversation and then actually listen. Actually listen to what your audience has to say and embrace their feedback. So if they're telling you that something's really valuable, keep providing that to them. If they're telling you that something is garbage and they don't care about it, instead of starting a battle with them, listen to them. Maybe adjust your strategy there. Always be professional in your interactions on social media. Always, always. Don't be baited into arguments or conversations that could look bad on your brand, because we all are promoting either our personal brand or for a brand. At Bass Pro, one of the things that I struggled with at the beginning, but quickly learned, was the power of silence. Sometimes it's better to just say nothing at all. It normally all fades away. You guys have seen our news cycle. It goes away so quickly. So don't get pulled into a conversation that you don't need to be in. Don't be afraid to be silent on it. And Pat brought it up. It's been reiterated several times. There's no secrets in the world anymore, so be careful with everything you do on social media. Be careful with what you do off of social media, but especially on it, because all it takes is that one screenshot, and it's out to the world forever, and you can't do anything about it. Don't be afraid to reach out and compliment others, interact with other pages. That's been one of the biggest ways for me to build pages for certain brands, is interacting with key influencers in those industries. And whenever they post something, you've got a guy like Ike where he's getting those 10,000 interactions. Well, if you're one of the first ones to comment something helpful or something, good insight on Ike's page, well, other people are going to notice you and they're going to go to your pages and check you out. So get on there and interact, and don't be afraid to interact with the little guy either. You know, someone that is only getting a couple engagements, well, it means a lot to them when you interact, and they're going to come follow you and tell their friends. So don't be afraid to compliment people, to interact there. And I will say that with a caveat, don't be the guy going to every single account, every page saying, hey, come check out my feed, you're going to love it. Hey, come do this, because that gets to be spammy and you just kill your brand doing that. And don't be afraid to cull your limit when you need to. There's going to be some people that are just problem children on your pages, right? They're always causing trouble. They're just stirring the pot, and if they say anything, obscene or vulgar, don't be afraid to block them or remove them off of there. Sometimes you have to do it, and it's just better for your audience as a whole. So we've done all of this. We've put in all the hard work. Now it's time to go into our analytics and take a look at what we've done, what works and what doesn't, and then adjust from there. Most of the major social media platforms have some pretty robust built-in analytic software in them, especially if you're running a business page. So you can get in and you can look at your key demographic data. You can look at who's following you, at what time they're interacting. You can see which posts got the most impressions, the biggest reach, the most engagements. So look at all those things that worked and then try to reiterate them. Pay attention to that target market and see if maybe what you thought your target market isn't right at all. Maybe you need to adjust. Maybe you need to change your voice a little bit so that you're addressing those people. Look at trends over different time periods. So you may want to go and look at your analytics over a week, over a month, and then go back and look at them over the entire year. You're going to see different trends, and the more long-term that you're looking at it, the more those trends are going to stand out. Don't be afraid to adjust your content strategy. Go back in and change that calendar as needed based on those analytics. And last but not least, and something that I struggle with, you're spending all this time on social media, you're working hard on it. Relax and go outside, get away from your technology. That's when a lot of your best ideas are going to come. Don't sit there right after you post. Maybe for like 5 minutes, sit there and look at it, make sure it's being well received. Go outside, disconnect from it, go do your normal thing, work on that great content, and then come back, look at it, and adjust from there. All right, so that's everything I have for you guys. I'm going to step down off the stage here and address any questions. I know we didn't get into a lot of the nuts and bolts, so I'm happy to answer questions on some of that as well. So thank you guys. I appreciate it.